5, 4. What is up, everybody? We are here with Alec Torelli, all the way across the pond. American guy, but I feel like you're just always over there in Europe. Where are you?
I'm in Italy now. My wife is from here, so we have family here, and we're based here part of the time. So we spend a decent amount of our time in Italy, Italy specifically, but also in Europe as well. And then moving around, we move around a lot. We're kind of like gypsies. So
you have been transient for years. It's funny because I feel like so many poker players, they have that life for a while, and then after a while, they're just like, dude, I can't take this anymore. Like, it's hard.
Yeah, like we didn't, for a long time, even though we were married, like we didn't have like a home base. We just traveled like pretty much all the time, and we like lived in Airbnbs. And I mean, we had a place in Macau, which is where we were based. But like even that was like a transient home because we had visa issues. You could only stay there for 30 days at a time. So like it's still almost like an Airbnb, even though it was a full-time place. And so, yeah, that was like, I mean, we've known each other a long time, but since I was 18, which was, 13 years ago, I've been living that life. I just like it. For me, that's what always drew me to poker, was just like the ability to have a cool lifestyle. So for me, this is what it is. For other people, their thing is different. And so the poker allows both, which is great.
Well, we've talked, I think you've put a lot out there, I think, about traveling, about that lifestyle, about high stakes poker, how to sort of maintain and live that lifestyle. You're really sort of not just building your own brand, but building what appears to be, in a lot of ways, like sort of an altruistic give back, I think, to a lot of poker players. You've done a lot of things, at least for me, you've done a lot of things strategy wise, which I think a lot of other people are holding close to the vest. And it seems like in the last few years, you're expanding even more. I know you spent a little time in LA recently. I saw you had kind of there was a little buzz going around live at the bike. And apparently you're also doing some boss status, like talking to business people about poker. So talk to me a little bit about what you were doing in LA.
Yeah. So, well, I'm from Orange County. So I was there visiting family. That's always close to the heart. Obviously getting to see family was amazing because I don't do that often. I was only in the US 1 month in 2017. So I didn't really get to see anybody. This is my first time back in 2018 as well. And I'm back in Italy now. So it's great to see family first and foremost. I was lucky to be on Live at the Bike. I was the featured guest. So we had Alec Torelli week for Live at the Bike, which was really flattering. That was really cool. It was great to be like there and participating. And we got to play, an eclectic array of games. We played like 2-5 no limit all the way up to 100, 200, 400 no limit. So we played all these sorts of array of games, which was awesome. And I got to do commentary and talk to the fans, which was really cool. I actually enjoyed, even though there was a lot of high stakes poker, like for me, I actually enjoyed like talking to the fans almost more than playing. Like that was really cool. There was like 5,000 people that we got to connect with. So that was incredible. And then, yeah, like I was, I kind of just like fell into this as well. Like just some people I knew in LA, one of the guys that I'm friends with is in this group called War Room. And it's a group of digital entrepreneurs, mainly digital entrepreneurs that are very prominent in the industry in that industry. And I got invited to speak at that event. It was at the Beverly Hills Montage in April. And I was talking about, decision-making process in poker and how it applies to life and business. And it was, hopefully a different perspective that entrepreneurs, might not have because, coming from the poker world, you really are taught to see the world differently and make decisions differently and think about things from a unique perspective. And so I shared some personal stories that I have and then how those things apply to life and business and hopefully helped entrepreneurs as well. So that was incredible. For me, that was like being a little kid, because it was awesome.
Yeah, like a terrified little kid. And this might be like a little too anecdotal, but especially speaking to people who are involved in real estate, I've been home shopping myself recently. I'm trying to get on that farm life here in Texas. Like I'm on pigtails and everything ready, but
you got it.
Talk to me, give me just like a little bit, give me a little taste. I think we're always kind of trying to make all these correlations between, sports and poker and business and poker. How can we make everything make sense in poker? But I do think in decision-making, specifically poker players have an edge in almost everything. So yeah. Give me just like a little bit. What advice are you giving these people about how to use poker to make decisions in, for example, real estate? I need to know. Help me.
Well, this conference actually wasn't about real estate. We talked off the camera. The one I'm going to in June is about real estate. This was for like mainly digital marketing, but it's, my message was basically just like, so my message, I'm trying to condense it down to like 30-second anecdote. It was basically just like understanding Sorry, my phone's going off at the same time. It's basically just understanding yourself and like what you're trying to accomplish and what your goals are, and then mapping your actions to make your dreams a reality. And so a lot of people, I feel like, are kind of go around unaware of what they're actually trying to accomplish, or they don't really set out specific goals for themselves. And so a lot of these people at the conference specifically were like big time entrepreneurs that are very, very successful. But it's kind of like a lot of them were there really wanting to scale their business. And my whole thing was like, why? Like, why do you want national distribution of a product? Or why do you want, to take your business from 4 million to 7 million in sales? Like, what are you going to do with that difference? And like, what is that going to mean for your life? And I shared some personal stories for me in poker where it was like things that I wanted to accomplish in my personal life, and then looking at how much I needed to make playing poker to do that. And a lot of times it's a lot less than what you think. And I feel like a lot of people, like the default is just sort of to pursue money endlessly. But in reality, like living an ideal life, I think costs a lot less than people think in terms of finance. What it really costs is an understanding of where you want to go in life, and then control over your time and how you spend it. And as an entrepreneur, or as someone that's in poker, or anyone that has control over their time for an esoteric profession, it really gives you that control over your time. And then it's about reverse engineering how much you need to make to live the life you want, and really just trying to make these puzzle pieces fit together. And so that was kind of like my message, just that like, pursuing things that you really enjoy doing, first and foremost, understanding what you want, and then like reverse engineering to figure out what your how much your ideal lifestyle costs, and not just to focus endlessly on money. And I feel like in my poker career, I shared some examples of when I got kind of derailed, and then times that I really got it right. And hopefully it was inspiring.
Oh my gosh, I want the invite. I'm all about this conference life.
I'm hopefully going to share the content on my YouTube. They recorded it all, and I should get access to the talk. And I'm hopefully going to share it on my YouTube.
Man, well, speaking of your YouTube, I guess this is something you've been a poker player for a long time. That's been creating content. That's been doing coaching. You definitely have a world that's playing a lot of poker, and then a world that's also on the other side. So where are things falling for you right now? What's the balance in your life right now?
So I've always said, like, even at the peak, like I guess even at the peak of my career, like playing in high stakes poker in Macau, like I was always like a part-time pro poker player. And for me, that was always the right balance. So like I was never going to play 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. I might play 70 hours a week, 15, 25 weeks a year. And like, I guess in like the early days, I would play 60 hours a week for 3, 4 years, 5 years, even 7 years. Like that's just like the period you have to go to get to like kind of like make it. But I feel like the balance when I took on other tasks, like running my own business, I really had to find, and like I've been married 5 years. Like you have to find that balance of what you're going to dedicate your time to. And it's like, it's a struggle for me because I want to do everything 100%. I want to be involved in everything, but like, you can't. And so for me, it's about being intensely involved in poker. Like during that month I was in LA, like I'm a pro poker player. I'm playing all the time. I'm like competing at the highest levels, and 100, 200 no limit hold'em. Like I'm playing poker. Like I'm in it. I'm fucking studying. I'm running equity calculate. I'm in it, But then when I come back to Italy, like I'm working on my business. I'm practicing for this keynote in June that I'm giving to like 400 people. Like I'm super stoked, but I'm also like scared shitless and nervous, and I got to practice. So when I'm outside of poker, I'm like really focused on my business and growing my personal brand. And then, when I'm dipping in and out of the poker world. And for me, that's the right balance. So like I've always thrived when poker was a piece of the pie, not the whole thing, because I need those other stimulation in my life to stay inspired. When there's too much poker in my life, I feel like I'm not really living my purpose. I'm not really sharing my message with other people. I'm not like giving back in the way that's meaningful to me. And so I'm not creating content in a way that's meaningful to me. And so that's like, it gets me out of balance. And so it's a struggle. Like it's a daily struggle between finding the balance of like, wanting to get involved in everything, and then making sure that I have like equal quantities of the pie that I need for my own personal happiness. So that's a little bit about where I'm at with it. But it's evolving at every time in my life. It's like, it's different, so that's always a challenge.
Well, I know that also, anybody who's wanting to do anything 100%, coaching is something which also takes a lot of, effort and energy and like piece of your soul, and also just creating digital content. It's like all of these things are extremely time consuming and also
Totally.
take a lot of creative drive and energy. And I know you have new projects, in fact, even coming out. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, thanks for that. I mean, coaching is something that I really love doing, but like the one-on-one, like if I do a day session with someone where we'll like go play together for like 6 hours of poker and like review and like go all in on like all of their nuances, and I'll watch them play and like give them feedback in real time. Like I love it because it's super high energy. Or when I was in LA, I ran a live event. There were 20 people that showed up from all over the world, and we did like a 2-day, 8-hour a day intensive live mastermind where I shared like some of my best poker strategy that I've learned. Like it was incredible, but it's like all of my energy. Like I'm like a power plant, and I'm just like releasing energy to the group for 8 hours a day, like standing on stage speaking. And it's exciting because I have a lot of energy, but then it's like, I could not scale that. Like I can't do that all the time. And so my coaching thing, it's like, I like doing it, but I'll do it like, once a week, or I'll have like 1 or 2 clients I'm working with, just because like, you can't reach people in the masses when you're doing small scale things. And I like doing it because it challenges me in new ways. I'm forced to connect with people, and it really keeps me improving at poker when I'm constantly solving other people's situations, right? I'm helping other people solve their problems. I'm kind of connecting with where people are at in poker right now. And that helps me create content on a macro scale. So then when I go back and we create a new course that we're launching, for example, at Conscious Poker, my poker training site, we have a new course that we're launching called Hand Reading Mastery. I'm really excited about it, but it's the product of working with hundreds or thousands of people in group coaching or isolated coaching. And then it's like finding the commonalities that are, tracing between every person is telling me variations of the same problem. And I'm like, shit, what if we just did this and we put it all together, and I took and then it's like the light bulb goes on, and then I could create something that we could run at scale to reach, tens or thousands of people. Right. And so that's the process. And then on the back end of that, it's running a business where, I'm only doing my part, and we have a team of 10 people, and we have a video editor and a graphic designer and a marketing director. So it's about running the business in my free time as well, and making sure that I have time to be hopefully a good leader of a company where we're trying to grow, and it's like exciting, it's like, so I'm being involved in this other new venture of trying to be a CEO of a company. And that's like also a new, unique challenge, so it's trying to juggle everything and then keep every slice of the pie efficient, obviously, because I do a lot of different things, but then also like in the right balance.
So I think it's amazing because I definitely think this works in almost any industry, this idea that like, we're not unique snowflakes, right? You think your problems are so original, and your marriage problems, somebody's had them 50,000 times before.
Yeah,
obviously,
for sure.
Your poker problems, it's the same thing. And I really like this idea of taking it from real life and kind of like paring it down. This is what I'm hearing from different people's versions of it. It's actually the same thing. So let's talk about a little bit of some of the things that you're seeing that you're trying to solve in this new series coming out on Conscious Poker.
Yeah. So thanks for that. I guess people ask like, why do because I like read all my email and I respond to like all my comments. And it's like, I look at all that stuff because like, I want to understand exactly what's like happening. And like, I want to understand exactly like what is touching people in a way that they're liking it and what's not, and what's working, what's not. So I guess like the course we built is about hand reading, because it's like, I try to find out what's the biggest pain point that everybody has. What is everyone struggling with the most? And I find that it's basically being able to identify what the heck your opponents have. And it's hard because everybody plays different. So there's opponents you play against that are crazy loose maniacs that might, play any 2 cards. And then there's really good, tight, solid pros that put you to tough decisions. And so there's all these different types of players. And so what I try to do, and what our course tries to do, is systemize the process of making a decision. So it walks people through a 4-step process of how to make a decision that applies to any situation versus any opponent in any game. And we really try to give them like my thought process condensed down into a simple, easy to follow blueprint that they can sort of like implement into their own game. Kind of like saying, you're in good shape. You're a personal trainer. You're in great shape at the gym. What is exactly your workout and diet that I could follow to guarantee results? And that's kind of like what I tried to systemize for people. And this is basically the product of, me creating content on YouTube for years. We have 500 videos on YouTube, and it's like coaching with other people and working with clients. And then answering comments and emails and seeing what's people are struggling with. And then it's like that process of dissecting your own thought process down onto paper was arduous for me, because it was like, I kind of know how to do it, but I don't know exactly what I think. And so the process of actually going through the minutia and writing down every single step made my own thought process clearer. And coaching has made me a lot better at poker, because I've really forced to understand with a much more simplistic clarity exactly what I'm doing in every single spot or what I recommend. And so we tried to break that down in a way that's easy for people to follow in a course format. And that's what we're working on. And then that's launching next week. And I'm stoked, because it's been a long time in the making.
It's so interesting, because actually I think these things are so obviously linked when you're talking about, okay, this is how poker connects to business. And you're like, well, why are you doing something? Why this? Why this? And then I'm like, oh, well, that's basically also when you're like it sounds like you're approaching it, that you really are approaching life in the same way that you are approaching poker and getting.
Yeah, it's no different. I mean, I used to run a digital marketing company where we did lead generation, and it was like the same thing. You're trying to like automate the business. You're trying to create systems. You're trying to make it efficient. You're trying to only do your job and have everyone else do their job. And it's like, we're doing the same thing here. It's just applied to a different industry, And so it's interesting, because you're taking like, I'm 31 and I have a career behind me. My career wasn't running a company. To some extent it was when we did our digital marketing company, but it was as a poker player. But then I'm like taking the lessons that I've learned from poker and then applying them towards business. And it's exciting, because it's something new and challenging in a different way.
Now, I think having 20 people get sort of one-on-one time with you and get, 20 to 1, whatever, being able to get 2 full long days of intensive training and coaching, I think that's something that a lot of people would find really valuable. Is this something that you're going to continue to do in the future? And also just tell us a little bit more about what that was and how you sort of built it out.
Thanks. So yes, I'm going to do more in the future. So we ran this course in 2 different ways. We did one online, where it was a 2-month-long mastermind where 20 people joined from all over the world. And we ran a 2-month course where we did biweekly coaching, and I walked them through a course that I built. And they got to take the course and do biweekly coaching with me, and then everyone got private sessions with me. So it was like a very intensive mastermind. And it was great, because I got to get to connect with people from all over the world. And we put these people all together in a forum, in a group. So they had a private access moderated by myself and another coach at Conscious Poker. And they could get their questions answered by me and by the coach. And they had formats where they're like sending hand of the days, and everyone in the chat is responding. So they have this self-policing group of like-minded aspiring players that are all trying to reach that next level in poker, that are working together to get better. And so it's all like this interactive group. And the unique part of it is that, it's limited to all the people that are in the same level. And we screened everyone before that they join to make sure that they're going to be a good fit. And it was great to have people from different parts of the world, because they're like, oh, poker's played like this in Malta, and it's different in Singapore. And it was cool. Right. And that was a unique aspect of it too. Getting everyone together for a coaching call was difficult with the time change, but that is part of the struggle. And then in LA, we did the same thing, but instead of 2 months, biweekly coaching calls for an hour or 2 every other week, we did 2 days, 8 hours. It ended up being like 9 hours or something a day for 2 days. And so I really tried to break it up into 2 different days. And same with the course that I ran, I broke it up into 2 different sections. And I believe it's really what people need to excel at poker. You need to be good at playing the game of poker, which means you need to understand strategy, game theory. You need to understand ranges. You need to understand math. You need to understand all the tactical aspects of making a decision at poker. And you need to be a good poker player. You need to have bankroll management. You need to be able to tilt. You need to be able to manage your emotions. You need to understand poker psychology. You need to manage your image. And so you need to really have the marriage of both of these things. You need to be good at playing poker, and you need to be a good poker player. And so I really tried to bring both of those perspectives to the day course. And we divided it up into 2 sections. And I went over some of the things that are going to be in hand reading mastery. I went over in my live session, and I went over my thought process for making decisions. I shared hands that I played from big games around the world, and I featured them. I shared hands that actually, one cool feature we did is we had all the people from the course send us a hand, and I selected the best ones and went over them during the seminar sharing the principles of playing good poker throughout the hand. So we take a hand and we talk about the aspects of making good decisions using their hands. So like they could relate to the experience, right? So it's not just some random hand of poker. It's like it's theirs. And so I shared those things, and it was awesome. We got to do live Q&A. There was like 8 sections a day. Each one was like an hour, and then there was Q&A and stuff. It was awesome because it was really engaging. I really made it like a conversation so people can like raise their hand in the middle of me talking, and we kind of like chatted. And so I really got like one-on-one time with everyone, even though we were in a group. It was in a small room. It was awesome. It was really, really fun. I loved it. I'm definitely going to do it again. It's just a matter of where. My whole thing, as you know, is like I like to travel. So I would never put myself in a spot where like I'm doing, 17 events in LA a year. Like I'm going to do like LA, London, Melbourne, like places that I want to go around the world. I'm going to have events there also because I get to meet and connect with my fans and readers. And for me, that's like awesome, so it's about choosing cool locations, and hopefully like for this one, people traveled. So I'm thinking maybe we can even do a place like Thailand where people would love to go and make it like an epic destination. Like we have all sorts of ideas, but we'll definitely host more of these in the future. It's just a matter of where and when.
So we mentioned that you were at the bike, and I mean, you've obviously got we've been talking a lot about all the other things that are sort of related to being a poker player, but also are just about being a businessman. But talk to me a little bit about what's happening in the high stakes poker world right now. Like what's going on? Are you playing in China? What's happening?
Yeah. So I was playing a lot in Macau, like 2012, 2016. 2017, I ended up, we got a place in Italy. We ended up staying here more. We ended up traveling a little bit more. Not as involved. I guess the big game in Macau kind of like isn't there anymore in the same way that it was in the past, where a lot of the VIPs got banned from Macau and the big game kind of like dissolved and moved elsewhere. So I've been out of that specific scene, but still playing in like big games like Poker Night in America, traveling around, or live at the bike. For sure, what I would say, at least from my experience, is like the game, like the progression of poker is real, and you could see how people are playing differently and keeping up with modern trends in poker. And so the way that the game is tactically played has changed, I think. And it's really interesting. It's fun. It's like challenging. And I like that the game, like some people always complain like poker's harder now than it was. Like I actually kind of like that poker has evolved, because it always forces you to just stay ahead of the curve and stay sharp and study and improve to kind of like stay better than the competition. And I've definitely noticed that like some things that would have worked 2 years ago wouldn't work today. And there's new things that I think are working today too that are interesting. And so it's just about kind of understanding like the tempo of the game and always being one step ahead, right? And like, so like maybe in the past, for example, like c-betting was a big thing where it's like, I mean, they're talking about a couple of years ago, but like raising and c-betting was just like the default kind of like 1-2 punch strategy, like inbound the ball and shoot kind of thing. And now it's like people are checking more, but then people are also checking with more balanced ranges. So they're checking with strong hands now, whereas in the past when they checked, it meant they didn't have anything. And so now they're checking with strong hands. And so now c-bets mean different things. And so it's like, it's just interesting to kind of like see how the tempo is changing of poker. But I definitely have noticed in the high stakes games that like poker is evolving and has evolved. And it's not even the same it was even 2 years ago, a year ago. So it's interesting. It's fun. It's exciting.
Well, I know that you can't stay with me forever, but before we get close to the end, I also want to know, are you coming to the WSOP? What's your schedule this summer?
I don't know. Like, sorry, talking too much. I don't plan like too far in advance. So I know I'm going to Portland in June for a keynote. That's June 19th. I'm in Italy until then. I don't know what I'm doing after that. Like I might like go see that area, the Northwest of the US that I've always wanted to see and I haven't seen. And it's always like an opportunity cost. It's like a great time of year to travel. It's a terrible time of year to be in Vegas. And there's so many parts of the world that, are only accessible in summer to have a nice experience. And that's always tempting me to go. And so like poker for me has always been like a lifestyle thing. And like, I don't find that much intrinsic utility in being in Vegas in July other than playing poker. And so to be somewhere that my first reaction is not to be there, except for something that I'm doing, is not like a great selling point. That's not to say I won't go to the World Series. I just haven't made that trade in the in the past 4 or 5 years. I've only been to the series like 3 times. Usually I was in Macau playing poker there, and then this last summer I was there's personal matter, I was in Italy. But yeah, like this summer it's like up in the air. And like every summer it's one of those things where it's like a last minute game time decision where it's like, do I want to go, or
last minute don't go to Vegas?
Yeah, I always last minute have not gone. But like recently I've been in Italy and Europe and Asia. And so it's like also not like exactly easy to go. And then when you're like add up like, okay, the costs of going versus the cost of playing a 10K tournament, I'm also not like huge into tournaments. Mainly high stakes cash is my thing. So there's multiple reasons why I think for me it's not like as high of an obvious priority as it is for other people. And so it's not to say it's not like, you know, the best place to go play poker in the summer. It is. It's just not as much of like where my North Star is aligned as it is with the maybe even like the average poker player.
It's interesting because actually this was going to be the next question I was going to ask you, is that you've always been sort of notoriously a high stakes cash game player, but I do think in that, the online world, at least for Americans, has, slowly dwindled on and on. A lot of these high stakes players are becoming high stakes tournament players, and there's so many more. It's like we're inundated at this point with like a zillion high stakes poker tournaments everywhere, every day.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I wanted to get your kind of just thoughts and perspective on that.
It's crazy that like, the poker boom is kind of like, it seemed to me that we were more at the peak of the poker boom in the past. In other words, like the interest around poker was higher maybe a couple of years ago. And so it's crazy that we can still sustain that level of high rollers like that are just running around the world. I see things like, the main events of some events being 5Ks instead of 10Ks. So what we're kind of seeing is this like disparity between the highest rollers and then the average event. And I think the average events have even come down, so to speak. Like some of the average events have gone from 10 to 5, which I think is good because that allows more people and a softer field for the masses, which is better. And then there's this like elite circuit of high rollers that is still sustainable. But it really is the same. There's a rotating group of people, but it's kind of like, the way I see it was kind of like the big games in Macau. Like when we counted out the amount of regulars that played at the Wynn, there were like 55 regs that played, and that's sustained a year-round game. And it seems like, oh, there's always high-stakes poker, but it's like there's not that many people facilitating those games. It's kind of like that for the high rollers. It's like, yeah, there are high rollers. There are probably 50 or 100 players that, facilitate those high roller games. And then there's rotating groups of random VIPs that come and only play a few events, or people that only play because it's in a certain city. And that's kind of like the scene that we have. So it's like there is this high roller scene, but it's also very exclusive. And I think that's
is that
important
the
to keep in
only
mind.
way that people, because this is what I'm trying to understand from just a very basic economic level, if like the same 50 to 100 people are just swapping money all year long, I'm like, how are these people then, like, how is anyone ending up ahead? But it's just because there are these like periodic like fish here and there or something.
Well, it should be that like, I mean, I don't know how soft those events are today. So I don't know what percentage of the group is losing and what percent is winning. I guess fish is sort of like a relative term because in that event, a good player might be a fish. Like an average good player might actually be a fish in that event just because that event is tougher. But let's say there's like, 20 people sustaining 50 people. It might be something like that. But that's not like a great, from a business standpoint, it's not like a great investment if there's not an abundance of bad players playing an event. Like a good investment is like the main event where, there's 10% of the field is like really good and 90% of the field is amateur. That's like the risk reward that you want as a poker player looking for an opportunity. In an event like a high roller where there's 50 great players and 10 or 20 bad players, I'm not saying this is exactly right, but it's more on this end of the spectrum where, there's 50 great players or varying levels of great, and then there's 10 to 20 varying levels of mediocre to average. You have to be like one of the better great players for it to make sense for you. Sorry, I didn't drink enough water. And even still, you're not going to have a massive edge, right? Because your edge is going to be the difference in skill between you and your opponents. And since the average player is much better, the difference in skill between you and them is smaller. It's kind of like saying you're in the NBA and you're an average NBA player, you're not going to be that great unless you're like LeBron or like, you know, someone up at the upper echelon of the NBA. It's not going to make much sense. And even if you're in the middle of the NBA, you're much better playing with high school basketball players, which you can do if you go play the WPT, or play with, you know, Olympians or people in wheelchairs if you play the main event. Like, not to be politically incorrect, but that's just like basically the analogy to get people to understand like where they are in relation to an NBA player. Like, that is an opportunity you have as a poker player. So it's about consciously making that decision of where you want to invest your money. And like, I feel like a lot of the high roller circuit is a little bit of a house of cards. Like, there's a lot of ego going on and like people wanting to be in the high roller circuit. But aside from that, it's a lot of, and I'm not saying this about anyone in particular, like they're all excellent players, but it's a little bit of like a lot of people in spots in big tournaments or in big games like that are backed or on a free roll. And so it makes sense from their incentive to play because they have nothing really to lose. And so it's like, sure, someone's like, hey, Alec, here's 100K, go play and take 20%. I'm not saying this happens to anyone in particular, but if it does happen, it makes sense to go play, even if your edge is minimal, right? Or even if you were a losing player. Let's say that you knew you were a losing player and someone's like, hey, you could play on a free roll or like, you know, whatever. You're like, okay, I'm losing 4% ROI, but I'm on a 20% free roll. Like, so there's just a lot of unique economics to a high roller that you don't have in a 1K event. And so that also sustains the events because everybody, like we talked about this off camera, all men think they're great at poker and fighting and sex and driving. And so you have this situation where there's 50 players and all 50 think that they're in the top 5. Like, if you ask any one of those 50, they're all in the top 5 and 4 of their best friends are in the top. Like, so, and maybe Fedor is in everyone's top, but like, there's only 1 or 2 people that are LeBron James to everyone, but everyone is their own LeBron James. And so you have this situation where everybody's just playing against, you know, everyone else. But poker allows for that unique amount of self-delusion that you can keep a game going with bad players and good players that all think they have an edge. And that's a beautiful thing.
I'm like fully pulling that quote out. I love it. There's a few people who everyone agrees LeBron James, but everyone thinks they're LeBron James. I love it.
Yeah, that's just true, right? Yeah. I mean, that's why a poker game runs, because everyone thinks they have an edge.
It's a psychological phenomenon that's been proven over and over again. Everyone thinks they're, you know, the outlier. Everyone thinks they're better than they are and smarter than they are and all this. And great, because I think I'm super great and smart. So I'm obviously finding myself in also the lowest common denominator. But for someone who doesn't necessarily always want to come to the main event, but who can clearly see that it's a great value.
Totally.
I know that this year it seems like they're incrementally changing it, but this year, basically, there's no break, not like a day or anything before the final table. It's literally
I love it.
Day one all the way to the end. You're into it.
I love it.
Good.
Like, I mean, selfishly for me, if I ever make the November 9, like, I guess the downside is that there's like less sponsor room in terms of like from July to November to get like 50,000 for a patch or like whatever. There's that like downside. But the upside is twofold. One is that simplistically, you just don't have to like alter your life for 4 months. And what I mean by that is twofold. One is that you have so much incentive to study poker that you're almost forced to study poker for 4 months.
Yeah.
Because you have to. And so not having that incentive means you have 4 more months of time where you're not forced to dedicate your life to like studying ICM tournament final table strategy. And secondly, you also don't have to like be back in the US. Like, you don't have to like make another lifestyle altercation to be in Vegas in November. Like, it's just easier.
What about like the 2 days where you can maybe like sleep for a little bit before the final table? I feel bad. That's a long ass tournament.
Totally. For me, like I said, like selfishly, like I would prefer it because like I like feel like I would have an edge in the 10th day because of the mental and physical preparation I do to stay in shape for poker. Mm. So like, I would prefer that because it's going to give me an edge, but like, I'm speaking just straight selfishly, like, is it better for poker as a global scale? Like, I don't really think it matters, you know, like, I don't even think that matters really. I don't think that like people are going to be like, I'm never going to play poker again because November 9, like, I just think that like extrapolating those arguments are just too much of a stretch. But I also think that for the better players, and this again is me like speaking from my own like vantage point, but I think for anyone that considers themselves a winning player, what you have to realize is, let's go back to the NBA example. The difference between the best player and the worst player in the NBA isn't as big of a difference as the difference between an NBA player and a high school, like a middle school basketball player. And what's going to happen is everybody's going to study during those 4 months. And what's going to happen is the bad player is going to get a lot better than you are. You're going to get a little bit better, like 10% better, because you're already a pro. You're already a really good player. You already know like how to play poker. But the bad player is going to get way better because he's going to get coaching, pay $37,000 and get coaching, and he has $1 million to gain. And even if he gets coached from the best in the world, he's going to get twice as good. So he's going to move closer to you than you are going to move further away from him, if that makes sense. And so like, just from the standpoint of that, it also makes sense to like play it out because you're there. And there's something to be said about just like the drama of like playing it all out at once and being like, it's kind of like the difference between running it once and having a rebuy. Like spacing it out is kind of like having a rebuy period where there's this break and there's time to like recoup and like get in shape and like study, and like playing it out is just pure, it's just a fucking tournament. You play it out and it's done, and you're either going to win or you're not. It's just kind of cool. I don't know. It's more dramatic.
I'm with you. I like it. Well,
I like it a lot.
Are trying to, get way better even without making the WSOP main event final table. Give everyone the lowdown. Where can they find you? Where can they get involved if they want to be a part of this new thing coming out of Conscious Poker? Your social, all the good stuff.
Thank you. So the simplest way is just check out the Conscious Poker blog, consciouspoker.com/blog. There's I put together like a 14-page guide on cash game poker strategy. There's another one on poker strategy. There's another one on tournament poker strategy. And it's like beginner, medium, advanced, expert, and like all the different strategy levels, depending on where you are, you can apply this stuff and it'll help your game to get to the next level. If you like that stuff, you want to step further, subscribe to our blog. It's totally free. I'll send you my hand reading system. It's a little bit of what we talked about, a step-by-step format that's going to help people make better decisions, regardless of what decision they face, whether it's in a cash game or a tournament or against a loose player or a tight player. Basically a system they could follow that's going to help them make better decisions in poker. Again, it's at consciouspoker.com. It's free. They can enter the name and email, subscribe. We'll send you guys some awesome content and go from there. See if you like it. Like 95% of our content is free. You never have to try our paid stuff. Try all of our free stuff first. If you love it, great. Maybe you're ready for that next level. If you don't like it, fuck it. Don't buy our paid stuff. That's totally cool. We make our content available for free. We want to help as many people as possible and also give them a taste of the style of content and what we're able to do. So we're betting on our free stuff. We think it's great, and I encourage everyone to check it out. If they want to follow me personally, Conscious Poker is my business. If they want to follow me personally, I'm just at Alec Torelli everywhere. My website, Twitter, Facebook, Insta.
How is that possible? There's got to be another Alec Torelli out there.
I just got the first one, I guess. I'm lucky.
Man.
Scooped. I'm really like active on social. So if you DM me and they're like, hey, I saw you with Sarah, like hit me up. Like I like read all my comments. I try to respond to all of them. I do read all my email, but like the easiest place to hit me up that I'll respond is like probably Twitter or Instagram. If you hit me up at Alec Torelli, like there's a really good chance I'll respond, unless you like, if you have a genuine question or like you.
Yeah, like don't send Alec a dick pic, okay? Because he's not going to respond if that's what you're going to send. If you're going to send a real question, you're going to.
If you have a real question, like hit me up, or you just want to say hi, hit me up. I'm always around. I love interacting with fans. Like I said, I love doing the live Q&A of Live at the Bike almost more than I like playing high-stakes poker, because I really love talking to people. So hit me up.
You're like a saint. Well, I appreciate you talking to me. As always, give your wifey a big wet kiss from AJ Chardonnay. And yeah, we'll see you soon, I hope.
Yeah. Nice catching up with you as always. You're always a pleasure. And this is awesome. Thanks.